Hello and welcome to the SuperShow podcast. I'm your host, Chris, and today I'm joined with two lovely fellas, Jamie and Jonesy. How you doing?
Never
Not
been
too
better,
bad, mate.
thank you, Chris. How are you
All right,
doing?
don't speak over each other. Come on, that's just this disgusting behavior. Can you just be nice to each other?
Sorry, Jamie.
that's
You
better.
go for it.
Now, neither of us are speaking. This is what you get when you abuse us like that, Chris. We're both scared into talking.
Hey, I have the power, all right? He-Man. There we go. Welcome. We are a gaming podcast that we kind of talk about games occasionally, in between just talking about bullshit as well. Jamie is being distracted by a fly.
I think it might be a mosquito. I don't want to get, what's it called, Ebola?
Wow.
No,
Yeah, cool. Dengue
me-
fever?
measles, mumps, rubella. One of something.
Rubella.
They
Oh, there
give
we
you
go.
MMR.
Oh my god. MMR. Well, that's a gaming term.
Only the girls, only the female ones bite you. The male ones don't have any faces.
That's true.
Right? Yeah.
Mm.
Wait,
There you
hang
go.
on a second. Male ones don't have faces, male mosquitoes.
Well, they don't have the thing. The what do you call it? The proboscis. Is that a proboscis?
Yeah, proboscis. The sucky
Big
thing.
pointy bit.
Oh, you learn something new every day.
Yeah, exactly. Only the girls suck you off, Jamie. So, all right, look, we are available on a podcast platform of your choice. Not only that, we're also available on YouTube. So Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, and I'll tell you what, internet radio. As Jonesy would say, we are internet radio superstars. Although last time I think you said megastars. You promoted us, didn't you?
I did. To megastars. And I normally say superstars, but maybe I didn't say
Is
megas.
Mega really above Super? Or is Super above Mega?
I think Mega's above Super.
Oh, well, now we're wading into the whole Mega Drive versus the Super Nintendo. Like, who can win?
I'm gonna look. I know there's a supernova. I'm gonna see if there's such thing as a mega nova and see if it's bigger than a supernova.
A meganova is when we all die. But
What
yes,
about
we are internet
internet
radio megastars,
Hyperstars.
gigastars. There we go.
Megastars.
And you can catch us on paisleyradio.com every Thursday night, 10 p.m. Repeats on Mondays if you want that live feeling where if you miss it, like you fucking missed it. But then you can just wait for Monday and hear it again and potentially miss it again. And then you could just go to Spotify, iTunes, or Google Podcasts and get it there, or YouTube, whichever. Hey, I'm not your mom, okay? Jeez Louise. Fellas, what a podcast we have in store today, because so much news has been happening. So much stuff that we need to cover. To be fair, there is a fair amount of stuff, but it's also been maybe uncharacteristically dry.
It's what happens in these little lulls after things like E3. They put all the news out then, and then nothing happens in the interims.
Yeah, absolutely
True,
right,
actually,
Jonesy.
yeah.
In fact, it was today when we were on our WhatsApp group, just kind of arranging a recording time, where I was just like, oh, yeah, shit, fucking EA Play is happening today at the time of recording.
Yeah.
And it just kind of just completely snuck up on me. And thank God it did, because without EA Play, we wouldn't be having much to talk about. But yeah, there we go. I'll tell you what, fellas, a little bit of should we peer into the crystal ball? And I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, I can see something about Tom Clancy. I can see something about some pirates, potentially, maybe. Depends on how tired we are by the time we get to it. And I also see in my crystal ball a battlefield of some sort. Jamie's still getting...
There's a spider now. I'm not even joking. There's a spider.
The spider came to eat the fly.
How are we meant to podcast like this? These aren't fit conditions for podcasting.
It's not my fault that you live in a fucking hovel.
That's your roommate.
It might
Exactly.
not be a
You're the
spider,
one
actually.
infested.
Yeah, clean it, mate.
It looks so strange. It's got like a long, elongated body.
Ugh.
I have to smush it when it comes into the light. I'm sorry.
Cover
your ears,
that's
kids.
Fair. That's fair.
Can I ask if either of you would be bothered by this? So I went into my garage today to get some stuff out, and on the ceiling there had obviously been a nest of spiders hatched, and I would say there was probably like 200 to 300 tiny little white spiders with really long legs, just all like crawling around.
Kill me
They
now.
were only in an area about this big.
Did you
so it wasn't very
burn?
big.
Did you burn down your garage?
Yeah, that's where you get the lighter and deodorant out.
No, I just looked at them. I was like, oh, cool. But they were really spindly spiders with the really long, delicate legs.
Yeah,
ones you
that's
accidentally
how it
squish.
starts off, Jonesy. And the next thing you know, they eat their brothers and sisters until there's only one, like the fucking Highlander, and it's the size of your face.
I just got attacked by a fly. Jesus Christ.
What is happening in the United Kingdom?
Okay, just in case people are wondering, we are not like disguster people that are just have like rotting corpses around and all these bugs are about. The problem is when you shoot at night and it's hot and you leave your window open and you have a light on because you're trying to film, all the little bugs come to the light and they like to get into it.
That's the issue. It was 28 degrees today, or as it's known in England, a heat wave. So we had that to deal with.
It was more than 28 though, no?
No, like, to be fair, this week it got up to 31, 32, but today wasn't as hot.
Yeah. I think the issue with like that heat, because I saw there was a meme saying like, 31 degrees on holiday and a person, like a picture of a person fucking loving life. And then 31 degrees in our case, London and surrounds, fucking dudes just dying like literal skeleton. But the difference here with the heat though, I've noticed is that whenever it gets like super hot, there's no breeze whatsoever. There's just kind of like this like fucking stagnant heat. It's just horrible.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, we're not an aircon nation like our brothers across the Atlantic. Every time I go to a hotel over there, the first thing I do when I get my room is I turn that bitch on and go down to the lowest it can go, like 16 degrees. I want to freeze overnight.
Nice. I like it. It's a good strategy for sure. All right, fellas. Well, should we jump straight into this? What do you think?
Let's do it.
I think we should.
Because something happened that kind of really rubbed me the wrong way. And I know that Jamie's going to fucking tear me apart on this one. And I know I'm being hypocritical. But Ubisoft, they have announced a new Tom Clancy game.
Yes, they have.
And they teased it by saying, hey, we are going to announce a new Tom Clancy game. And it's like, cool. But then they also showed like a bit of a graphic where it's that classic Tom Clancy person holding a gun for the logo, right? And then like all this punk shit happened to it. And I was like, all right, they fucked it.
Come on, Chris. It's the trademark Tom Clancy punk style.
Clearly.
They've screwed it.
I immediately knew that they fucked it. And the next day, lo and behold, guess what? They fucked it. They fucked Tom Clancy. Right up his corpse ass, right? Just fucking going and dry. There's, dust everywhere. It's just kind of like evaporating.
Corpse, less resistance.
I guess so. But you'd need more lube, though. No?
I'll fill you in on this after the podcast, but
thanks.
Unless you're dealing with rigor mortis, you're A-okay.
Rictus me, baby.
There's a man who knows what he's talking about.
Do you know what it is? When I was like 19, 20, do you remember there was a film called...
Corpse.
Well, no, but it's as close as you can get without breaking any international laws. Do you remember a Serbian film? The film that was called A Serbian Film.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And it was like, it was kind of like in the era of the Saws and the Hostels. It was the one that kind of pushed it to the nth degree. That really pushed the letter in terms of...
I think even to this day, dude.
Yeah, well, so I would get into this weird thing where like I really wanted to see that movie because I had that, that the same kind of thing that you get around a Saw or a Hostel where you just have this sort of weird appetite for something repulsive.
Yeah.
But I couldn't bring myself to buy it or to watch it. So I would read the IMDb parental guidance of like what the breakdowns of the scenes were. And long story short, there's a scene that involves rigor mortis and like the onset of rigor mortis as the result of somebody dying. So that's why I know that. It's nothing to do with necrophilia.
I'm glad you cleared that up.
Film, though, that film is a lot to do with necrophilia. That gets I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 cucumbers. But it's on Amazon right now. Affiliate link in the comment section down below.
No, there's not going to be any link.
Can we please put an Amazon affiliate link just to the DVD copy of a Serbian film? And we just have it in the description box of every video for no reason.
That would be mental. That'd be so mad. Oh, God.
Anyway, sorry, that was you didn't ask for that, Chris. I apologize. I sidetracked you.
Well, look, aside from Jamie kind of taking over from Tom Clancy's corpse and having some sexual favors, let's be honest, Ubisoft announced a game called XDefiant. XDefiant, fellas. I'm not having a stroke. I'm not stuttering. XDefiant.
I believe it comes from the ancient Chinese. It was I think he was a Chinese warlord.
Well, so
do you know what? So this made me think of, and I know this is proper like parent level, But there is a character in Paw Patrol who is this cringy kid who goes around calling himself Daring Danny X, who's like this supposed to be kind of like what little kids, because I've got little kids, like the idea of what little kids would think was a cool teenage kind of character, and he's not, because it's obviously like made for like 4-year-olds or whatever. But he goes around, and when anyone calls him Danny X, he goes like, that's Danny, was it Daring Danny X, and does this, and it just made me think of that. Like, it's a bunch of grown-ass men, like, who've come up with a name for a game who are as far away from like Down with the Kids, and they're like, yeah, it's super punky, and it's called XDefiant. And I was like, oh no, why?
It's almost
Super
like
cringe.
it's almost like that time with like Triple X and the X Games, and almost all of a sudden everything edgy needed an X in it. It's like, fucking hell, guys, come on. But yeah, this XDefiant is almost like the X and the D are capitalized to be that like XD kind of like emoji text speak kind of thing.
Yeah.
But if that's the case, then is that just like emoji face XD, where it's like crossing your eyes with a big smiley face, and then it's actually just called
Defiant.
Affiant.
Defiant.
I don't know. It is so fucking cringe, this whole thing. Let me break it down for you, okay? It is going to be a 6v6 multiplayer game, but it's going to be free to play, which is good. I mean, you know what? Like, more free to play things, please. Thank you. With high enough polish. Although Ubisoft, maybe not the best track record in terms of those things.
No.
You know, Hyperscape? Anyone? Yeah.
We'll get to it. We'll get to it.
Maybe.
We've got thoughts.
But yeah, so, man, I don't even know where to begin. I'm just so fucking furious with this. I'll tell you what, when they were introducing the game and they had the executive producer and the creative director, whatever it was, on screen, and they're like, oh, I'm like this fucking buttoned down kind of businessman. And that was Mark Rubin, who was the executive producer, who, surprise, surprise, was also executive producer on Call of Duty Ghosts. Read into that what you will. Okay. Just going to lay that in mind.
No comment.
Well, there we go. And the other dude, I forget it, but he was wearing like a beanie and he was all like radical to the max. And so Mark Rubin comes on and says, oh, we've got this game and it's going to mix fast-paced firefights, and then the camera like pulls out away from him. And I swear to God, they do this like, it's like a record scratch or like a fucking, some kind of like a whip sound effect. And then the other guy who's wearing his beanie and he's very punk, he goes, meets punk rock mosh pit. It's just like, oh, fellas, what are you doing? Like, you're not doing yourselves any favors there. Like, look, a 6v6 free-to-play arena shooter based in the Tom Clancy universe makes sense, right? But it's almost like they've misunderstood what a Tom Clancy game should mean, which is like tactical-based, like war, military kind of thing. But what they've done is they say, yeah, but forget about tactics, fellas. Just shoot each other in the face while doing the fucking rock sign.
This is going to be my first, perhaps of many, hard disagrees. Which is that for as much as that showing did exude lots of the wrong kind of attitude and swagger and punk rock and punk rock mosh pits, whatever the fuck they said. There was nothing to say it wasn't going to be tactical.
I mean, some of that gameplay I saw was a little bit.
You go into the nitty gritty of like the differences between the factions, the differences between sort of like the gadgets and abilities they can equip, the synergies between them. Like, this isn't just going to be, as you said, shooting and then putting up the horns.
See, I have a bit of a theory anyway, because I think it will be, I think it will be super tactical. Super tactical is maybe too far. I think it definitely will be tactical, and one of the reasons is because, and this is a little bit of a conspiracy theory around like what they've actually done here, but not conspiracy theory. But we sort of had a bit of a conversation after we saw that trailer, and we were saying like, what a strange thing to tie that to Tom Clancy, and why would you do that when you're trying to do this military meets punk kind of thing, and you don't need to do that. Like, but it's a bit of a weird like thing to mix together. But actually, if you are Ubisoft and you already have Rainbow Six Siege, you're already working on assets for a new Rainbow Six Siege, and you have all this stuff available to you, why the heck not take the lot of work you've already done? Because if you want to make a free to play game, especially, all the money to you comes from obviously not spending too much on development, getting it out there, making it big, and then selling things after the fact. You don't want to get in a hole from development costs. So if they utilize a shitload of what they've already done from Siege, or from Quarantine, and obviously what they've already done, then they can capitalize upon that and make a free-to-play game. So that's why I think you've got a free-to-play Tom Clancy game, is because they can literally reuse shitloads of the stuff and the code and the assets that they've already used. I literally think that's the only reason it's a Tom Clancy game.
I don't know how much the gunplay is going to mirror Rainbow Six. I just don't know.
I guess very closely. There's additional stuff like the powers and things and the gadgets.
Yeah, sure.
But I think apart from that, I saw a game that looked like Rainbow. It looked very CG to me. The way the characters moved and the way they were like shooting and stuff.
See, I didn't think it kind of had much Tom Clancy to it, other than the fact that, as Jamie says, the different factions you can play as are taken from the different games. So you can play as, like, for instance, I think the support class is Third Echelon, which is obviously from Splinter Cell. And I got to bring this up because it's fucking stabbed me straight through the fucking heart. Because when they were showing off the Third Echelon class in some of the gameplay, they had the iconic the iconic Splinter Cell sound effect. And it's just like, you put that in specifically to just break my heart.
That is
you
a bit
fuckers.
unfair.
You fuckers. But yeah, look, I think the weird thing about this for me is how it doesn't seem like a Tom Clancy game, other than the fact that it's got guns in it, to me, at least. And it just kind of seems that they've like shoehorned in Tom Clancy to a game that could very have easily been its own thing. Like, I look at this and the vibes that I get from it are more a case of saying it seems a lot more like Watch Dogs 2 and Watch Dogs Legion and Far Cry to anything. If anything, I would say fucking slap Far Cry on it would make more sense to me.
Potentially. But I think slapping Far Cry on a game like this still, it comes from the same place, which is you're still just slapping a known brand onto it. And the argument that you and I were having the other day, Chris, or maybe it was more of a discussion, right? Because we're all friends and we all love each other.
Right?
Definitely not in too deep on this whole podcast thing and can't get out of it now. Was that essentially like the Tom Clancy brand has been banded about for a long time now, and you can look at games like the most recent Ghost Recons or Rainbow Sixes or Divisions. Maybe not the Division because that's a little bit more specific, post-apocalyptic, blah 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 blah. But certainly, like you could look at like a Ghost Recon Breakpoint or even a Rainbow Six Siege, and you were like, that's no different if you take the Tom Clancy branding out of it, and if you create a new elite unit of soldiers. So I think I'm just of the opinion that the Tom Clancy name, outside of like authored characters like Sam Fisher of Splinter Cell fame and unique scenarios like the post-apocalypse of the Division, quote unquote post-apocalypse.
Yeah,
I think the Tom Clancy name has already kind of been worn a little bit thin by Ubisoft.
Like
it just means military. It doesn't really mean anything else.
Sometimes.
I think it still does kind of mean like more serious military kind of thing, and
that is a point. Yes.
Yeah. What it doesn't mean is fucking goofy. Fucking let's. You know what it was like? It was like with the football, the Euro finals, when in fucking Leicester Square, someone did a bumper coke and then just shoved a flare up his arsehole. Like, that actually happened, by the way. And it's almost like that's what this game is, but then there's no, it's Tom Clancy. But that's not Tom Clancy.
Is that your way of saying, Chris, that this whole game ends in a sea of racist abuse and disappointment?
I mean, hey, with any luck. No, no, like,
do you not just think this seemed like a Tom Clancy game in a 6v6 faction military sim, and then they've just skinned some of the characters with like paint to go, look, it's punk. Like, that's, to me, that's how it felt. It didn't feel like it wasn't Tom Clancy. It felt like they've taken a Tom Clancy game, like in the fact that it's a military sim kind of thing, and they've taken some of the faction stuff, they've put everyone together in an arena, and they've gone, right, now they're going to fight, and then they've gone, hold on, what if we just like spray painted some of the walls, and if we gave some of the people funny things to wear?
Yeah, but
that would be really punk. And everyone's like,
but that is kind of the problem, though, Jonesy, because it's taking a specific tone that Tom Clancy should be known for and throwing it out the window. Like,
See, I think when
like,
you play the game, it'll still feel quite tactical.
I mean, look,
espionage-y.
I can put my hands up
Gonna
and
wear
say
a clown hat.
I can put my hands up and say, like, we don't know until we get our hands on it, right? Like,
Right.
we've seen one fucking trailer for it, and we're coming to a bunch of conclusions. But it just kind of like what rubs me up the wrong way, and this is kind of where I know I get like I'm the entitled gamer with the capital G, is I grew up with Tom Clancy games, like right from the beginning, like the first kind of fucking Rainbow Six. You know, I even played the Sum of All Fears, like.
Hell yeah.
You know, like I've been playing Tom Clancy games for a very long time. You know, the first Ghost Recon, fucking going up to it. And yes, there have been bad Tom Clancy games, but the one thing that you couldn't deny about them is saying it is kind of an idea of what Tom Clancy represents, even the bad games.
Yeah.
And this is like, it doesn't fit into Tom Clancy whatsoever, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's a part of me that wonders, and again, I'm now picking up on some of what Jonesy was saying, and I actually, having heard Jonesy kind of explain it the way he did, I actually kind of I agree with large sums of it, even if there is a little bit of kind of like fudging in terms of what we're guessing might have happened in between. And I'm wondering if there was. I'm now picturing the scenario, and I don't know if this necessarily changes how you feel about that stuff, Chris, but like that idea of recycling some of the gameplay elements or the work that was done on titles like Rainbow Six Siege to create a shooter. They knew they wanted something for the free-to-play market. They wanted to make something that they'd already tried Battle Royale. They wanted to make something that was a little bit more sort of like, not quite boots on the ground, but a little bit more something like shoot, kill, repeat. And they settled on this sort of the 6v6 format. But then the issue is that, like, I don't feel that Tom Clancy's branding is that it has a lack of personality. But when you take a shooter, and especially a tactical shooter, and take personality out of it, take color and take bright characters and take loudness, take volume out of it, you end up getting something that actually ends up looking more and more Tom Clancy. And I wonder if they ended up in this situation where they were like, actually, what is the demographic here? Like, where do we fit in? We know we want to appeal to these kinds of people. We know we want it to stand out in this way. Maybe they've been looking at, Rainbow Six Siege, which is a game that's been out for 5 or 6 years and has been on sale so many times. They're looking at it and saying, there's still these people we're not picking up. How do we convince them that there's a Ubisoft first-person shooter for them? And maybe this is their attempt to kind of like fudge their way into the middle and pick up the people that said, Siege looks a bit too self-serious and the pros all got really good at it and I don't trust the matchmaking to give me a good time, which is kind of how I feel about Siege.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
But maybe they also, in a traditional like corporate suits in a meeting room way, took it too far.
But then I probably agree with you in terms of that probably is what happened. But what I don't understand is I mentioned it, why didn't they go the flip side and say, oh yeah, Far Cry? Right?
You know what? Yeah, maybe.
I don't think the Far Cry, for me, the Far Cry thing doesn't fit. Like, because if you go the Far Cry route, I think that you're taking it into a different area because you are taking it into a much more bombastic sort of thing. Where from the trailer, I got the impression that they almost were selling. One of the selling points was this isn't your typical arena shooter 6v6 kind of free-to-play game. This is Tom Clancy. This is slow feet moving with the guns sighted up and picking your shots.
I did not get that. I did not get any of that from that trailer.
Compared to the games like
dude, they were like running over fucking barricades and just like fucking
they did for some of that, but then there were definitely some parts of it that looked more slow and considered, which I was like, okay, I think this is going to feel
there was a mix. There was a mix.
Yeah, but then I wonder how, like we said, I wonder how it'll feel when it actually
I remember released. Even from like the echelon gameplay, where again, like you said, it's kind of like
that was more sneaky.
It was a little bit more sneaky, but even to back up Chris a little bit, it wasn't like a mix where like they would sort of slow down and they would use like a pulse and they would see through walls and see people. But then when they engaged, I felt like a lot of the attention was on like, hey, you're gonna fucking slide into battle and you're gonna pop up and you're gonna spray someone. And
can I bring back this quote again? Fast-paced firefights meets punk rock mosh pit. What about that makes you think that you're going to be fucking tactical about anything?
That's a shocking quote. That's a shocking mashup.
No, you're right. That's fair.
The other thing that's a bummer about all of this is that I think there are brands within the Tom Clancy universe that aren't best served by punk rock mosh pits. But at the same time, if you hadn't told me about the punk rock shit and said, hey, we're going to take the ghosts and the wolves and echelon and the cleaners and so on and so forth and and we're going to take all these guys and we're going to give them unique abilities and gadgets inspired by their origins and pit them against each other, I'd be like, yeah, I'm down for that, and it's free to play, so I'm going to get all of my mates to at least try it, and like we're going to go into a game and we're echelon this time, and it'll be like playing Spies versus Mercs back in the day where we're all putting on our goggles and seeing through walls, but then next time we play as the fucking wolves and we've got different sort of gadgets to think about and we have to consider. Like, there's some depth there that's interesting. I think they fudged the presentation a little bit.
I bet you what happened is they made that game, because that game sounds like a game that I would want to play, right? And that might be this game. Like, I'm not saying it's not necessarily. But what I would imagine is the cynic in me says, they made that game, they looked at it, they said, okay, we want it to be free to play, but how do we monetize it? Because there's only so much you can do with like camo and fucking night suits. And then fucking Dingus McGee and his fucking beanie said, I know, mosh pits, and it's like, that's how you sell skins, because it's excuse me, it's almost like they saw fucking Warzone and they said, you know what Warzone needs? Warzone needs Apex characters and skins. And it's just like, ooh, okay.
Yeah,
I guess.
What's the chance somebody was supposed to be in a Riders Republic meeting and they wandered into the this meeting instead?
Dude, from all the shit that we've been hearing coming out of like management from Ubisoft, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
I did have a favorite quote that I don't know if you guys remember, but I did put in our WhatsApp group, which was the beanie guy going, I'm super stoked that you get to hear about it. And I was like, where you think, like, do people say that still? I thought that was from when I was a kid, like back in the 90s. Do people still say I'm super stoked?
There was a great kind of like, I like when shit like this comes out, even if I disagree with it, even though in this case I agree with the discourse that's happening on the internet. But it's almost like these internet reacts to the announcement articles, or whatever. And someone that just had that that clip of Steve Buscemi where he goes to the high school in fucking, I don't even remember what film it was, but it was like, hello, fellow kids. When he's trying to be like undercover. And it's like, it's like that's what Ubisoft's trying to do. They're trying to appeal to the cool kids, but they're just so out of touch that they don't even know what the cool kids want.
Here's another tinfoil hat thing, and I wonder, from the realm of a Jonesy style take, I wonder, do you think there's maybe an element of this where Ubisoft looked at a game that we kind of mentioned in passing already, Hyperscape, which was their attempt at a free-to-play entry into the Battle Royale subgenre, which I think by most accounts it didn't work. They paid off a lot of like streamers and YouTubers to make content, but it didn't stick.
Yeah.
I wonder if one of the problems they felt Hyperscape had, upon reflection with hindsight, was almost anonymity, which is that it had some things going for it. They tried to push verticality, they tried to push unique abilities, they tried to push, these windows and your break going in and out of buildings, blah, 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 blah. But the biggest problem that Hyperscape has, even now, is that people, in some cases even people that played it, like myself, can't tell you that much about it. We can't even remember it.
Yeah.
You make a game with the stronger the personality of a game gets, the more polarizing it gets. But the more polarizing it gets, the less likely you are to forget it, no matter where you come down in it. And what XDefiant creates is a situation where, whether you've got like a Chris on one end of the spectrum and some fucking guy Ubisoft fan who still has a mohawk and skateboards in 2021 on the other end of the spectrum, everyone's coming away with the word XDefiant in the front of their minds. Everyone knows what this is. Everyone's like, I've got to see it one way or another. Whereas Hyperscape never had that.
Yeah, I guess it's almost that thing of all publicity is good publicity, right?
Right, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of strange.
I definitely had from this, the difference of Hyperscape was I never wanted to play Hyperscape. Like, it looked trash from the get-go, and they would say, like, and it was so about them pushing verticality, but it never looked fun. Because I think there's a weird thing with games, and I've said this so many times before, like, I don't think it's how the game often is, it's how the players play it. And I think one of the things, like, one of the reasons Rainbow Six for me probably blew up was because not only was it a good game, because like, I'm not saying Hyperscape was necessarily a bad game in what, the basics, but with Rainbow Six, people play it in a certain way, which means they love it. Like, they can get super tactical, they can pick corners, they can pick areas where they know, like, you'll have people who just stand in one spot because they know that people walk past a certain wall and you can shoot them and get a kill, and they'll just stand there for ages, and it's, once you're dead kind of thing. Hyperscape didn't really have that. They didn't have any. It was more mental. Like, you could just jump around and bounce around and shoot people. It's like, isn't it fun? But serious gamers don't want, isn't it fun? They want a game that they can get to grips with, and they can sort of. I'm not saying they don't find it fun. I'm saying that they don't want like a wacky time that they can't get to grips with. But this, if it does have an element of the tacticality, if that's even a word, of a Tom Clancy game, they will be able to find those areas where proper gamers can really get to grips with it, and they can make it their own, and they can figure the game out themselves, and then it could become massive, and it could become another Rainbow Six. I mean, which I think this looked like it had a much it looks like it has a much better chance of doing that than, look at Hyperscape, isn't it wacky? You can jump around and go really high up. It's like, no, I don't want to play that. It looks shit.
Well, yeah, okay, look, in terms of Hyperscape, I was curious because I was like, is Hyperscape dead? And it seems like it might be, fellas, because the last update that they had was patch 3.1 on April 7th. So a lot sooner than I actually thought it would be, but still hasn't been updated in a while. But I do want to bring something to your guys' attention. There has been another kind of squad-based title based on Tom Clancy that has come out. Do you remember Elite Squad? And I'm not talking about the kick-ass Brazilian film of the same name.
Regrettably,
no,
I do remember Elite Squad because it was the one that had the balls to not just have like Echelon in there, but actually have full-on Sam Fisher in it, which was a bit of an insult.
And excuse me, and they also had the whole thing of having like the Black Lives Matter like icon in there, but then also you are playing as the government shutting down protesters and stuff. Like a little bit tone deaf. Well, guess what, fellas? It's going to close. It's going to close in October. Elite Squad is no more. I think it launched in August of last year. So,
when you have that much of a bad start, like to that, there's no way they were going to come back from.
Well, here's
a horrendous start, were they?
But here's the hard thing, right? It was a mobile game, wasn't it? So
yeah,
you almost think to yourself, barrier of entry on mobile games from a AAA publisher, like it should have. They could have done like. It's the Tom Clancy fucking thing. They could have made it a success, but they weren't able to. And now they're trying again with XDefiant.
So one question I have about the Tom Clancy thing, because you were saying about that XDefiant doesn't feel Tom Clancy. Would you say, maybe it's feel again, and we won't know till the game comes out, but would you say that Extraction is more Tom Clancy than Defiant?
Okay.
Because one thing is with Extraction, you're talking aliens, you're talking like your team members get captured by aliens and you've got to go and extract them, hence Extraction. Like, is that Tom Clancy?
Okay, so this is where it gets to very interesting kind of discussion points and I guess murkier waters. But in my mind, okay, trying to come at it from like Tom Clancy purist kind of thing, like Extraction was a game mode that was released on Rainbow Six Siege as like a Halloween thing, right? So it's almost like it's a spin-off. And I for whatever reason,
right.
and like I said, this is kind of me being like hypocritical or whatever, but for whatever reason, that sits okay with me because it's like because of its origin as a spin-off.
Like
do you know what I'm
it's like if Tom Clancy did a collab with R.L. Stein before he died.
I see. It's like it grew on its own. It's more of a natural progression as opposed to like forcing it like an XDefiant.
Yeah, and I guess like there's not much defending that. I will be honest. Like Extraction is not a Tom Clancy kind of thing, but it is a quirk, and a quirk that I can maybe get behind because, like I said, it's stemming from a very traditional Tom Clancy kind of game, Rainbow Six. Like it's just fucking how it is.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me.
Get ready, guys, because in years to come, it's going to be Tom Clancy's Assassin's Creed, Tom Clancy's Far Cry, Tom Clancy's Riders Republic.
Like Tom Clancy
the doors are fucking blown open now, right? Floodgates have opened.
I was just going to say, like, you nothing's off the table because Ubisoft must be in amongst the weirdest positions they've ever been in their entire history as a publisher, where, you know, we've got games like this exploring the free-to-play market in a way that they never had before. You've got games like Beyond Good and Evil 2 and another, which we'll discuss later, that seem to be in absolute no man's land. You've got games like Riders Republic and Rainbow Six Extraction that just can't come out. They've both been delayed since we fucking talked about them at Ubisoft's own show last week or whatever it was. And then you've got huge things like Avatar, like it just in the midst somewhere along the way. Just these huge licensed properties, and maybe even a Star Wars game somewhere along the way. Like
and Assassin's Creed Infinity.
Assassin's Creed becoming a fucking online platform. Like, just a strange time to be Eve. Yeah, and you know what? If I was pitching reality shows to MTV circa 2001 right now, that would be my pitch. It's like, it's after Made, you get It's a Strange Time to Be Eve, and it's just a fly-on-the-wall documentary following
being the most boring documentary ever, as he lies on a beach in the south of France,
counting his money,
and he goes, like, sexual harassment? What sexual harassment? And then puts the sunglasses back on.
Doesn't even know what's going on.
No one has ever been sexually abused in that company. And then has another sip of his pina colada. And yes, he is a meerkat.
Yes, and he's sitting next to Bobby Kotick as well. So
yeah, exactly. Bobby Kotick, funnily enough, also saying much the same thing.
You know. And J. Allen Brack, fucking hell. Anyway,
oh dear.
So look, they are going to have their first kind of. From what I can see, they've just called it a test. So I don't know if it's an alpha test or a beta test or whatever it might be, but it's happening on the 5th of August. In the kind of like announcement trailer, they made it seem that they are very keen to get the game into people's hands and that they are very willing to listen to feedback, which is always a double-edged sword with the internet, especially when you try and go fast-paced firefights meets punk rock mosh pit.
Yeah.
So
yeah, is it?
It almost kind of like
Really
it reminds me of fucking Todd Howard going on there saying, "Oh yeah, the beta test for Fallout 76, the break it early test access," and it's like, well, you just fucked yourself over than that one.
In fact, I remember being on this podcast this time last year talking about how Marvel's Avengers having so many alphas and betas and public access early on could only be a good thing because they're being so open.
Yeah, so we all know how that turned out.
Remember when Spider-Man came out before summer? Yeah.
Nope. Wakanda? What? Nah.
Well, to be fair, I'll probably play that Wakanda expansion. They're getting Kratos to be King T'Challa.
King T'Challa, yeah.
What's the actor's name? I should remember it. Christopher Judge.
Christopher Judge.
Yeah, Christopher Judge. But yeah, dude. I mean that's a fucking game that's going to stop as soon as Wakanda and Spider-Man come out.
If
Mark
Spider-Man
my words,
bro. I think if they find a way to get out before they have to make Spider-Man, I genuinely think they would do it.
Yeah,
if Square Enix let them.
Well, look, I'd put money on them saying at least after Spider-Man, they would not update that game ever again. They just walk away. That's where the smart money is. Cut your losses.
Yeah. See, really, the mistake was it should never have been Marvel's Avengers. It should have just been Tom Clancy's Avengers. And like, if they'd mixed up that, Avengers. That co-op beat 'em up action with a punk rock mosh pit style vibe, then who knows what could have happened?
Who knows, fellas?
It does annoy me how there's only a few things you're allowed to do in games, and it's like you can sort of mash things up with. It's like steampunk or punk. That's all you're allowed to do. Those two things.
Or cyberpunk.
Cyberpunk. It's always fucking punk. Like, come on now.
I'm waiting for my favorite subgenre to start coming out of the shadows, as it were, and that's a spunk.
I like it.
I think it's prime time for the subgenre of spunk to come out.
Is that like sports and punk?
Spunk is whatever you make it, baby. It's just as long as it's moist.
What would be the weirdest game they could say is having a punk, like a punk mosh pit sort of element put into it? If they brought out like an Olympics, wherever it would be in 20 bloody whatever year the next Olympics would be in, and then it's like mosh pit, punk mosh pit meets the Olympics.
Yeah.
I'd like a game.
That'd be pretty weird.
You know, you get games like Gone Home and What Remains of Edith Finch. These kind of like first-person narrative-heavy adventures that usually involve sort of like teenage or early 20s girls or women returning to homes that have some kind of like familiarity or importance to them in their past. Except once you get inside, instead of like looking around the environment and finding clues to sub-stories that revolve around members of your family, you just wreck the place and do graffiti everywhere. And that's where we reveal it's actually Mark Echo's getting up, going home. What's it? No, Mark
Echo's getting home.
No, Mark Echo and Edith Finch's. Yeah, I don't know. There's a joke in there somewhere. So finish it in the comments down below.
Yeah, nice. Okay, cool. Well, fellas, let's move on, okay? Because something interesting happened. Something miraculous happened. It's been a long time coming, but we recorded an additional piece of content exclusively for our patrons. I don't know when we're going to edit it and put it up, but it's been recorded. So put that out there. Hopefully within the next week. But to give you a kind of hint as to what it is, we have dredged up an old comment from 11 months ago. 11 fucking months. It still blows my mind how long we've been doing this podcast. But yes, 11 months ago, comment of the week. And this one comes from our man Sam Dyer. And he says, 5-star podcast as always, lads. Even after all these years, you three remain so entertaining, it's enough to make one momentarily forget that Matthew Broderick is a known murderer. And I think you can see where I'm going with this. You need to give us 5 stars on iTunes, please. No, we recorded our very first episode of Known Murderer, and it is about known murderer Matthew Broderick.
Yeah. 1 year in the making, I learned today. So apologies for that, I guess.
It's taken a time, but you know what? Like, we wanted to do it right. And in true, I was going to say ATG fashion, but in true SuperShow fashion, we just decided on a whim to do it, and we didn't put much effort into it. Although Jonesy kind of hosted that one, and the amount of effort that Jonesy put into it, I must commend you, sir. It was, I was blown away.
Jonesy was doing research. Jonesy was writing scripts. He had it all covered.
It's mental. So, if you want to check that out as soon as it's edited and uploaded, then do head on over to patreon.com/SuperShow and show us your penis money, love. Show us some love and give us your support. And yes, you can get some stuff in return. Okay, so for as little as $2, you can get access to our Discord server where we occasionally are hanging out. But there's a good bunch of people there, is what I will say. And every now and then you can get Alex Jones just kind of dipping his toe into the Discord waters, which is always fun. Yeah. And $5 or more gets you access to a whole host of additional content that we have created just for patrons. Patrons that we love, such as Aaron Cameron, Athletic Gravy. Oh, God. Guys, I'm trying to read the Patreon names out. Stop tickling my toesy woesies. Jesper Camdal Nielsen, Javela Cujo, Leo Merger, Lonnie Thompson, Magic Grits, Mindful Pig, Nathan Piers, Pastors Guild, Scary Omen, Starfall Kid, and Zach Cream. And then, of course, there's the big boys, the big fellas, the mighty donguses, the Giga Chads themselves. I'm talking about Shellshock, Hacksaw Book Read, Manuel Milwaukee Bucks in 6, Guerrero, Peaswad, and The Dude Abides. What do you guys think about Milwaukee Bucks in 6?
I don't understand it. It's from
it's an NBA reference.
Yes,
NBA.
No, sorry, I do, because they won.
Chris, you're going to have to help me with the surname, but Giannis, and I'm going to throw it over to you.
Oh, fucking Antonopoulos or something? I don't know, whatever. But anyway,
no,
yes.
It's Antetokounmpo.
Hold on, I'll bring it up. Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Oh God, yeah.
Giannis Antetokounmpo.
I did see a great tweet the other day, which was like, it was like a gif of some guy like sweating and panicking, and it was the message on the tweet was like Drake trying to fit a way to squeeze Giannis' surname into a line,
into a verse.
But yes, the Milwaukee Bucks won the NBA championships. I don't. I know it was the first time they won in 50 years. I don't know who they were playing against.
The Suns?
No idea.
Is it the Arizona Suns? I'm pretty sure it was
the Arizona Suns. There were probably some Americans who were absolutely Phoenix Suns.
Phoenix Suns from Arizona.
Yeah.
No? maybe.
Phoenix is in Arizona, right?
Exactly. Yeah,
so,
Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah.
I was all right. Shame they've got 0 championships, but there you go. I think from the Suns' perspective, they were not expected to get to the finals whatsoever. But then, the Bucks won. So sorry, Suns, and Manuel Guerrero, obviously being a Milwaukee Bucks fan.
Manuel Guerrero is extremely well versed in sports of all kinds of varieties, as it turns out.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Do you know what? Can I put? There's something that I immediately thought when I saw about the Bucks winning. And I don't know if anyone else had a weird feeling. I just looked it up, and I actually think this is quite cool. So I'm a big Back to the Future fan. And obviously in Back to the Future, they talk about the Cubs winning the World Series.
Oh, yeah.
And the dude says, I wish I could go back and put some money on the Cubbies because then he would have won a shitload of money. And that gives Marty the impetus to go back to buy the almanac and go sending it back. I've just looked it up. And so Back to the Future is obviously set in 2015. In the future, that's the year he goes to, which is why it was big in 2015 when people were talking about it. Do you know when the Cubs won the World Series for the first time in 108 years?
It was like 2016 or 2017. It was like
2016, 1 year out.
Yeah.
Back to the Future was 1 year out.
No good enough.
If you'd have put money on the Cubs in 2015, just because you love Back to the Future, and then you thought, "Sorry, I'll do it next year as well," you would have won loads of money.
Mental.
Anyway,
and then you become like the mayor or the fucking president. What did Biff Tannen become?
Is it mayor? I think it's mayor, right? Or no, he becomes. It's not even a mayor. It's just like some CEO bigwig, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Whatever it is, he was rolling in the money. All I remember is he was in a hot tub with lots of TVs around him. I was like, yeah, that's how I want to live.
TVs and women.
Yeah. Right. Yep. Well, fellas, I'm so stoked that we fucking recorded that Known Murderers.
I'm so stoked.
It makes me so fucking giddy. It makes me so stoked. It was almost like a fast-paced podcast meets a punk mosh pit. So punk rock mosh pit.
Oh,
it was cool. It was really fucking cool. Look, for our current patrons, definitely look out for it.
Also, want to give a shout out to the legendary producer Mark Rubin, who just came in and just sort of listened to us while we were recording. Just made sure that everything was ticking over. You could tell that his experience making the fish swim away from the player really came in handy. So shout out to Mark.
Man. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate your time.
What a cool dude.
What a story, Mark.
Fucking hell. All right, fellas. Well, with that, let's just have a bit of fun. Now I'm in the kind of I'm in the known murderer territory. So I want to hear what you guys have been playing. I've been playing some Cyberpunk. Not much more to report than that. Cyberpunk ad nauseum. So I've now relinquished my role to it.
Can I indulge you in a little bit of Cyberpunk just for a second? Not necessarily about playing the game, but do you know what? Ever since I've been thinking about when I want to play Cyberpunk, I've gotten really in the reads about following Cyberpunk leaks and rumors and like refreshing that subreddit and sorted by new every 3 hours during my workday. And I think 3 hours. I mean, it's a life choice, but sure. I think something's going to happen soon. And I know that's not saying
apparently this new big patch is meant to be coming in. It's meant to be like. What were they saying? Like 32 gigabytes or whatever.
So there was all kinds of stuff.
They call it half a war zone.
That's the new unit of measurement.
I like it. Yeah.
So that is apparently like that exists on some of the servers on like Steam and Epic and so on and so, which implies it's maybe like in some kind of testing. But there was also a thing where there were people found references to DLC in 2 different places. Someone found it in the Epic Game Store backend, and someone else found it in Cyberpunk's files, like if you like in the game files, and both seemed to match up.
Right.
And they had like shortened names, so you could tell like what they might be referring to. It seems like, and there was this fascinating thing, for example, where like some people realized that 4 of these DLC entries appear to be referring to gigs that might be added to the game. I believe they're called gigs, right?
Yeah.
And the shortening of the gigs in the game files referred to the part of the city that they took place in or would be found in. And then someone else pointed out that a data miner back in January, and you can watch these videos on YouTube now, 6 months ago, found unfinished gigs that had like didn't have animations and didn't have lighting and stuff like that, and they realized that the locations of the gigs that were in the game unfinished, and still are now if you find a way to access them, also match up to the locations of the gigs being mentioned in the game files with the upcoming DLC. So it looks like at least some of the DLC might be like reactivating side missions that weren't finished at launch, but were kind of like partly included in the game. Other things referred to like weapon packs, and people found out that like WP stood for weapon packs, and there was like blunt weapon packs and tech weapon packs. So it seems like they are prepping this, which makes sense if in their eyes the game is fit for all consoles on some level. It makes sense that content's next. So I'm excited for the future of Cyberpunk. I'm not afraid to say it.
So do you think you're going to jump in with that next patch, or are you? Because you've got the PC version.
Yeah, I'm at my wit's end pretty much. Like if 1.3 comes and some kind of DLC or additional content doesn't seem too far away, then that's my jumping in point. 100%. Yeah,
because it must be such an interesting kind of perspective. Like less so about Cyberpunk, but just being this kind of a fan of gaming who is on the sidelines watching all of this stuff happen kind of around you, and just be like, to be fair, it has died down a lot. Like recently, we've been keeping it alive for God knows whatever reason, but like it must be a fascinating thing, and it must be, I'm sure, in a way, quite torturous.
Torturous is a better word for it. Yeah, I usually, you guys know, I don't like being on the sidelines when I can avoid it. I usually like to throw my weight around and get angry about things when there's an opportunity to. And obviously, Cyberpunk would have been an opportunity for that, but didn't work out that way. I don't know. I'll make up for it at some other point.
I just can't wait to get your perspective on it, because it is a fascinating.
Oh, we'll do it. We'll do it. Well, I think we'll have to make it Patreon exclusive, because I really don't think we can subject our YouTube audience to too much more Cyberpunk content.
Yeah, it'll just be the crib notes for the main podcast.
Yeah.
But in terms of not wanting to be in the sidelines, I think there is something else that you recently kind of jumped in, kind of both feet first, is it right?
Well, we'll see. We'll see. As Jonesy pointed out when we were discussing this before we recorded, there is still a difference at this stage at like showing an interest and actually jumping when the time comes to jump. But I did, in fact, put down the small amount of money required to secure a Steam Deck, one of Valve's upcoming handheld portable systems.
Jamie's Steamy Dick.
My steamy dick is going to be coming all over this podcast in maybe a few months' time. We'll see. This was more of like you said, though, this was a bit of a FOMO thing. This was a thing of like, I don't know if I can afford this thing when it comes out. I don't know if I've got a place for it in my life. I don't know what to play on it, but it's new and it's exciting. And yeah.
What tier did you go for?
The big one, the Big Daddy.
The Big Daddy.
Yeah, I wasn't going to, but then it was also this thing of like, this is. I'll say it how it is. This is like a luxury good. This isn't something I need. I can't justify the purchase. Certainly, if you look at my Switch playtime, it doesn't paint a pretty picture for how another handheld device might fit into my lifestyle at the moment. But I'm excited by these things. I like being a part of the conversation, I guess, as we discussed with Cyberpunk. Like, sometimes I don't like sitting on the sidelines, and £500-600, that's a lot of money to spend to be a part of a conversation. I will admit that, and I haven't committed to it fully yet. But we'll see what happens.
There was one thing we talked about briefly, and I just looked it up to find out. So it did sell out in the first 48 hours, because they had a thing where they were saying that the first 48 hours you had to be a Steam account holder and have made a purchase previously to I can't remember, like June or something, in order to be for it to be valid. But yeah, they did sell out, because I think we asked a question, wasn't sure. But then, so that was for the December releases. So when are you on that lot? So you should get, if you did go on, you'd get it by December, or you would be in the new batch, which is I think Q2 of 2022. Do you know?
I've got a feeling I'm actually in the new batch, because I know I wasn't quick on it.
Because it would have been the flow. It said the first 2 days. Yeah.
Although you, like, as I hinted at, Jonesy, you were making the point before we started recording that it's one thing putting £4 or £5 down for your chance. It's another thing having that amount of money ready to go when you need it to be ready to go when the time comes. It's something that even myself, I'm questioning. I don't know if I'll be in a good position to do it. taxes are a thing. That
I had the same thing with the index. I don't know if you guys remember, but I reserved an index, and then they had the whole issue whereby they weren't shipping any, and it was months and months. I think it was like 3 to 4 months later. They messaged me and said, "We've got your index ready to ship to you now. You just have to pay the I don't know, 600, 700, 800 quid for it." And I was like, "Nah, I don't think I'm going to do that now."
I've got one for you, a story similar to that for you guys. When the Soccer World Cup was taking place in South Africa in 2010, when I was still living there. And the way that they had tickets is there was a raffle in a way, right? For people that lived in South Africa. And anybody could enter as long as you lived in South Africa. And what you could do is you could say, I want tickets for these games. And then it was like almost like a lotto where, like behind the scenes, it didn't matter who you were a number, and then that number would be eligible to buy those tickets if it came up in that raffle or that lotto. And I put down for like, your usual, the games for South Africa, the games for Greece, and what was it? Quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals. And I got an email saying that I was eligible for the quarterfinals and the finals. I was like, fucking great. Dream come true. So I was like, and they're like, do you want these tickets? I was like, yes. It's like, cool. When the tickets are available, we will take the funds from your account. Like, okay. Anyway, few months passed, whenever it was, like the lead up to it. And bam, they tried to take the money from my account, didn't have the money in my account, and it just bounced. And I completely lost out on those tickets.
And so that's
luckily, a friend of mine got final tickets as well, and he got 4. You could get up to 4 tickets as an individual through this raffle. So he sold me one of his tickets, which I was very grateful for. So shout out to Costa Como, cool dude.
Shout out. It's still,
but yeah, I was heartbroken, dude.
I feel like the taking someone, like ridding someone of World Cup final tickets in their home nation shouldn't like rely on a fucking credit card or debit card bounce back or like one pushback. That's not fair. Like get in touch and say, hey, you've got 24 hours to find an alternate means to pay for this, and then we move on.
Right, yeah.
Like something like that. That's brutal.
They could have asked you to pay it. Like, here's your link, pay for it now.
Yeah, their whole thing, unless I'm misremembering, but their whole thing, because I mean, it was like fucking 11 years ago. Their whole thing was, they did say, we are going to take the money at some point. Make sure that the money is in your account. It's like, yeah, okay, but you fucking forget about it. You go about your living your life. You go out, you get rid of the money that's in your account because that's just what it's there for.
Why do you think with the Steam Deck that they didn't just ask for payment up front? Do you think it's because they're worried about supply issues and they don't want to be in a situation where people are saying, I want my money back because you couldn't deliver it by December? Surely they could have ridden this wave of demand, and all they're going to lose between now and December, I would have thought, if that's when they actually ask for money from people, all they've got to lose is, sort of with PR and with what people think about it, and negative stuff comes out. If it does, people are going to. It's not like they're going to get more orders because they're sold out. So all they're going to get is people maybe cancelling it or deciding not to get it or changing their minds, and then they've got a shitload of units that they. If they don't have any problems, they've got a whole load of units that they then need to sell to other people.
That is a good question. I don't know.
So why not? Why do you think they didn't just ask for all the money up front?
How often do people take money up front when you're like pre-ordering a piece of technology? Like the PlayStation 5, we didn't pay up front. I remember that much.
It depends. I think it depends on the tech. It depends on when it's coming out. It depends on a whole load of things, I suppose.
Maybe it's the stigma around it, right? Like the whole Kickstarter thing, and you pay now, and eventually you'll get some hardware, which might not even be the specification that you. I mean, it's Valve rather than some kind of like dodgy Kickstarter company, but still, like maybe it's just that stigma, and they're just like, it's okay, guys. Like, if you don't want it, that's all right, but you just. No.
Although I suppose maybe because let's say they had 10 pre-orders available, right? And then they're all £4, and then half of those people don't buy them. They can then sell those units again, but they've already made money from people who didn't buy it. So maybe they make more money in the long run by you paying a reservation fee that you're willing to lose and then selling the unit again.
I think for the £4, $5, whatever that they were asking for, I don't think it's negligible for a company like Valve, right? Like, I don't think that's the case. I think that money thing there is there purely to kind of dissuade bots and scalpers. And I think, and that's why they're also like, oh, you have to have a Steam account. You have to have had it active for so many times and bought something in it within the last couple of months, whatever.
I love that. I do love that they did that.
Yeah, I would think if there wasn't a bot kind of issue with the scalpers, that there wouldn't have even been a price to pay for reserving your.
Did they do this for the Index pre-orders?
No, the Index pre-orders were free.
Right,
you didn't have to pay.
Yeah, but then again, it was a lot more expensive, right?
It was. I remember that.
Having said that, there are still scalpers on eBay selling their fucking Steam Decks for like thousands of dollars, which is mental. But
seems far too premature for that. But yeah. But if they've
smelt there's blood in the water, mate. Off the back of the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X and S, and off the back of the graphics cards, all the scalpers now like anything that comes out, I'm gonna get it.
Yeah, but you can still go on Steam right now and buy one for Q2 2022, which there's no PlayStation 5 equivalent for that. Let me tell you.
That's true. That's true.
Like if you could go on buying the PlayStation 5 end of last year and get one at Q2 2022, loads of people have done it, but there are still people to this day.
Exactly. What the fuck is happening with PlayStation? Like,
hopefully
I'm gonna be like in a position to maybe be able to buy one soon.
I asked for you. I don't know if you remember. My local Smith's Toys had like a load of boxes or some boxes, and I was like, "Are they legit or are they just boxes?" And the woman was like, "Nah, they're just boxes." I was like, "All right, great." Thanks for that. She said, "Oh, keep checking online though, because we should get some more in quite soon." And I was like, "Oh, interesting."
How have they not sorted their shit out? Almost a year on.
I don't think it's them. I think it's the world, right? Because if no one's sorting their shit out, then it can't just be something like, unless they've all made a secret pact to like, I don't know, fuck us over, drive up prices. But I don't know. But speaking of the companies involved or not involved in driving up prices by creating shortages around their products, I did take advantage of a specific benefit to life as an Nvidia RTX card owner this week. Basically, DLSS, I guess, has been around in some form for a little while and has been implemented to a fair chunk of games, but I've never really personally experienced it because I've never really, to put it bluntly, I've never come across a game where I've really felt like I've needed a significant performance boost relative to the visuals that I was trying to achieve. Perhaps one example for that, outside of Cyberpunk, which I haven't played yet, was Red Dead Redemption 2. And DLSS supports arrived on Red Dead Redemption 2, I think inside the last week. And I can confirm that I have played it with and tinkered around a little bit, and it works. It works, you know.
Yeah,
it works.
What gains? You got to talk about your gains, bro.
I mean, so my gains were all relative because I essentially I basically optimized for 60 frames. I got it as good looking as I could, and while running at least 60 in basically all environments, which occasionally meant going up to 70s and 80s and more in sort of like more sparse or whatever environments. So I was able to crank stuff up and still maintain 60. That's all it meant for me. But because I was also using DLSS quality mode, which is fairly sharp and actually helps. Red Dead Redemption 2 has a little bit of an issue with some kind of like not quite rough edges, but a little bit of like sort of like these weird sort of like dithery, almost ghosty edges. You look at like fur and hair and especially trees and sort of vegetation. It helps with that stuff somewhat, not flawlessly, but considering it's like this weird, invisible Nvidia magic, you can't really complain. And obviously there are, performance and ultra performance modes for people who want to run that game significantly better and maybe have like a horrible low end rigs. I don't even know. But at least now it's would be playable. I didn't experiment too much, but yeah, it's solid. Solid, and it's a good looking game, and I like booting up Red Dead Redemption 2 every once in a while, just to spend 2 to 3 hours not doing a single mission, but just riding around on my horse. In the course of this one, I went to a nearby village. I got a drink at the bar. I played a few hands of poker. I left. I got on my horse. I was going to go back to my camp when I saw a drunk man starting a fight with a woman, and I went and I intervened, and he started a fight with me, and he brandished a knife, and I was like, you know what, I'm above this. I'm not going to kill him. And then I forgot the controls. I was trying to remember the control where you can like kind of tackle them to the ground. I accidentally got my pistol out, didn't shoot him, pistol whipped him, knocked him out. The woman had run away because she was scared of me now, so I picked him up, pulled him into a barn nearby, and then stabbed him to death inside the barn. And then I went back to the camp covered in blood to sell a perfect deer carcass to Pearson, and he said, "Why are you covered in blood?" Because that's cool game design.
Do you know what I hate to admit, and I will rectify this. I really will, because I keep meaning to do it. I have not finished Red Dead Redemption 2
Oh,
yet.
surprise, surprise, Alex Jones.
Do you know how it
It's
ends?
no surprise at all. I don't know how it ends. Because I'm very good at not ruining the story.
Oh my god!
He's
you're
also
in for a
very
banger.
he's also very good at not remembering when we tell him.
Oh, I'm great. I'm great at just blocking shit out that I don't remember.
That's a good skill to have.
No, it's one it wasn't I wasn't enjoying it. Like I liked it. It did have a little jank in some places, as you would expect from that type of game, but nothing bad. And I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. And it was just the size and the scale and the commitment. And I can't remember why it was one of those games where,
Jonesy, you didn't finish Red Dead Redemption 1, so maybe that could be like your shtick. Like your Red Dead thing. It's like, hey, I never finish a Red Dead game. It's just my...
But I know why that was, because that was of Undead Nightmare, because I started playing that and then finished that and then was like, I can't be bothered to play the rest of Red Dead Redemption now.
Yeah.
I tried to go back to it and play it like later, and I think it was too long. I'd waited too long. It felt so old and dated. And I was like, I can't play
It is hard to go back to for systems as well. Like I'm finding that even having like a couple of months off on my, what is technically my second playthrough, I had a lot of like, oh yeah, like there's the trapper and then there's that guy, and like, I can sell these things to that guy, and he can sell me trinkets, and like I get better holsters from this guy if I go and get that pelt or that fur, and like what was I spending money on the camp for again? And
yeah, some of that stuff I found so like confused and just didn't need to be that complicated.
Sometimes straight up didn't even need to be there, which is perhaps even more frustrating when I don't know. There's an interesting. I went on a bit of. You guys know girlfriend reviews, where like that chick reviews the experience of watching her boyfriend play a video game.
Yes.
Yeah.
She did a video where it was like watching your boyfriend replay Red Dead Redemption 2, but with like none of the bullshit. And she comes to the conclusion like, hey, it's much better that way when you realize what you do and don't need to engage with.
Yeah.
That's Rockstar.
There you go.
Anyway, that's me for the week though.
That's you. Go. What about you, Jonesy?
Do you know what? I said I wasn't going to do it last week, but I changed my mind and I did play some more Resident Evil 2.
Yes.
Good man.
I played it for it wasn't very long. Maybe it was like an hour and a half or something. But for people that didn't hear, so I'd got to the part where Mr. X comes in and he starts giving you shit.
X gonna give it to you.
And I didn't want to do it because I was like, I don't like scary games, and I knew it was going to try and like jump out at me and punch me and grab me or do whatever at random times. And so then I turned it. I stopped where I'd stopped before. Like I'd stopped playing. I was like, I don't know where the last save point was, but literally where I reloaded was the second you meet him. So I had to do the initial fight again, but it was all right. And then I ran around and I did some other stuff, and it's not quite as bad as I thought it was going to be. I've bumped into him a few more times, but the most annoying thing, and actually this is what stopped me playing this time again, was I have no ammo. I have no secondaries. And this has been since about an hour and a half. I've not found any ammunition or anything like that.
No ammunition in an hour and a half?
No. No, sorry, that's not true. I managed to find 4 shotgun shells, which was it. But because even the normal zombies take 2 shotgun blasts to their head to finish them off. So you do a whole section where you run around, and if you remember, where you're trying to get the part from the clock tower, and then you have to get down and run around an area to get to another side, to go into a room to get another part. But there are like 4 or 5 zombies there. So if 2 shotgun blasts to kill 1 zombie, I literally had to get grabbed. I had no choice, because they were on corridors where it's like 1 person wide. So I spent I would like, how much health have I got? Run through this guy. He grabs me. I get up. I heal. I let another one get me. I get up. I heal up. I run to another section. Anyway, long story short, I'd already run past one. What are they called? Not liquor. I'd got past one liquor without engaging it and got hurt a bit. Then there's a bit where the Mr. X and a liquor come after you at the same time, and I've got no ammo for anything. But I did have a stun grenade, and I managed to stun them and escape.
Decent.
I then got killed by. I think Liquor then killed me anyway because I had to go back through a certain section. And it's one of those now where I don't want to play that bit.
Yeah.
Because I know it's going to make me play again. I've got no ammo, no secondaries, and I'm going to play the same bit again. And I'm just like, this is not fun now. What can I say? I died though for the first time in the games that I've played it. So
that might make it easier.
That was fun.
Yeah, it might help you out.
Yeah.
Hopefully it'll give me some goddamn ammo.
Maybe you should just load up and die a couple of times and just kind of see how that
then
helps
it'll give me some more stuff.
Yeah, maybe.
I definitely remember being super short on ammo a couple of times in that game. We talked about one of them last time in the sequence with the dogs, but I don't remember going an hour and a half finding as little as 4 shotgun shells, and that's it. Definitely don't remember.
Yeah,
considering
an
hour and a half is like a third of a playthrough for one character.
To be fair, maybe it shouldn't have taken me an hour and a half, but I backtracked and went to and checked some other areas because I was like, they've got to be ammo. But you can tell, like the map shows you where there's stuff, but I couldn't find anything. So I'm convinced that I've missed something. Like there's a gun and more ammo somewhere that I've just not gone to. I was even thinking like maybe I should just like do a mod or a cheat or something where I can give myself start like fucking AK-47 and roll around and just finish everyone off like that.
You make your own fun, right? That's what cheats are there for.
But it's not. I think the only thing I've got to do now, if I'm right, is I've got to run into the basement, put the electronic part I've got on the board, and then get out of the garage. I believe that's where I'm up to. But I've just got to dance around some goddamn zombies and Mr. X and liquors because I've got nothing to take them out. But no, still a cool game. Not enjoying this section as much as the rest of it, but I'll get through it. And do you know what? I didn't play anything else, so then I put in that I read Animal Farm this week because I'd never read it. And I read it.
I love that.
There you go.
I read Animal Farm. Well,
it was good.
Is that the communist thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, the George Orwell like novella. I don't know if it's short enough to be a novella, but it's pretty short. It's like 90 pages long.
Yeah.
Nice.
Do you know what pisses me off? I got it out to read it.
Yeah.
Right. I read like about a chapter. I didn't even know how much. Like, let's say I read like 3 pages, put it down. I picked it up the next day and it had been messed with. Right. And it was because my wife had read it in about 3 hours. Like she reads shit so fast. Well, she'd read it in one evening. And then I was like, hey, did you just read Animal Farm? She went, oh yeah, I read it yesterday. Like I saw you had it on the side. And I was like, it took me 3 more days to read it.
How many pages is it?
It's like 90 pages long.
Goodness gracious.
I'm with you. I'm with you, Jonesy. I'm such a slow reader. It's ridiculous.
It takes me forever.
But because my wife is a speed reader as well. And I know what the difference is she doesn't read every single word in a sentence because she speed reads. Okay. She speed reads, like proper like speed reads.
How do you know what's going on?
She kind of grasps it, but like that's the technique, right? You learn the technique and it works for you. But yeah, for me, it's like, I might as well just be narrating it verbatim.
Do you guys do this? I read it. I hear the voice of the characters in my head, reading it at like normal speaking speed.
Yeah.
That's how I like to read.
Yeah, I don't skim read or anything. I've fucking every single word. Yeah. And sometimes the worst fucking thing is when you start getting a little bit tired and you're reading a sentence and you get to the end of the sentence and you go to the start of the next one, but you just keep on reading the same line over and over again. Yeah. But you're so tired you don't really realize it.
Or you get to the end of a sentence or like a paragraph and you realize at some point you stop taking it in. And you're like scanning back up to be like, what was the last thing I remember reading? What was the last word?
You'll read it again.
Do you guys ever have the thing where you're like,
reading's a trip,
where you're reading and it's all going in, and then you become self-aware of the fact that you're reading, and because you're thinking about the fact that you're reading, you're not concentrating on what you're actually reading anymore. So it's like
It's like trying to meditate and then realizing that you're meditating and thinking about that and then being like, oh shit, I'm not meditating anymore.
Or like watching a movie and being like, I've really got to remember this, but now I'm thinking about making sure I take it all in and remember this as opposed to watching the movie. And
Here's it. No one else is going to care. I thought this was cool, but so I'll share it with you because I've never thought about this before. My 5-year-old, so he's only learned to read in like the last I suppose year at school, but he can now read. Like he reads everything now. And I'm going to say one of the biggest reasons he's so good at reading now is because of Pokemon, because he reads.
I love that.
Like everything on the screen. He can read all of it and he knows what's going on. But he, 2 weeks ago or a week ago, he read in his head for the first time.
Ooh.
Oh, like without reading
silently
it out loud.
read.
Yeah. That's
And
cool.
I was kind of like, that's such a weird thing. I've never thought about that. And I went, did you read that? And he went, yeah. You didn't hear though, because I didn't say it. And I went, I said,
so
do you know
cool.
what it said? I was like, do you know what it said? And he went, yeah. And I said, I covered it up and was like, okay, tell me what it said. And he said verbatim what it said. And I was like, you did, well done. Oh yeah, there you go. Weird story to share.
But
From gaming podcast
those-
to literary.
Those are the kinds of things that kind of make you like proud as a dad when you realize those milestones that you never would have thought of before, but you're like, well, yeah, I guess that is a thing.
I assumed that's always been a thing for everyone, but of course it's not.
Yeah.
Of course it's not.
I
You
hadn't
can't
thought
do
about
that.
it until you said it how he said it, and that's like, oh, that registers. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, if you've got kids, get on Pokemon. They learn to read. It works.
Right.
It proper helped my kids. So yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you used to be a kid and have maybe grown up, you might have played some skating games, which
Ooh.
leads me nicely to EA Play and the lead up to EA Play as well, because while Skate or Skate 4, whatever they're calling it these days, was not at EA Play, they did release a statement and an update trailer saying, hey, we're working on Skate, so don't worry about it, dudes, to the max. You know,
Yeah,
one of those.
doesn't
There
mean
you
I
go.
didn't get excited though.
Oh, yeah, I mean, fucking skate games are great, right? But yeah, EA Play happened today at the time of recording, yesterday at the time of uploading. If you're listening on Pacey Radio, I can't do the fucking math. It's been a while,
It
all
was
right?
on Thursday.
Yeah. But anyway, EA kind of, they got the easy stuff out of the way in kind of the pre-show, I guess. You know, your FIFA, your Sims stuff, whatever it might be. And then they went into the kind of the meat of it, the meaty bit of it. And they talked about Grid Legends, which I didn't bother to pay any attention to. So I'm going to have to lean on you guys to kind of discuss that one.
I mean, it's a new racing game from Codemasters, who were recently acquired by EA, and they make the grid games, they make the dirt games, and they make the F1 games. So they're not hanging around because that's 3 games in a very short amount of time. But just between those,
Yeah.
They
IPs
love
alone.
their car games.
Yeah, I guess the difference with this one is that they're going heavy on a story mode, which is going to be delivered seemingly through live action cutscenes that were filmed on. And Jonesy, what did they call it?
XR, extended reality.
Extended
So
reality.
it looks, if you imagine instead of green screen, they're using actual like projections. So the actors can see the game
It's,
world and interact with characters whilst they film it, which
Yeah.
is
It's what they
it's a
did
kind
on
of a cool
the
tech.
Mandalorian.
The Mandalorian. Yeah.
Right,
That's right.
Yeah.
which is a cool thing, and it's interesting to see them utilize it like this. FMV in this day and
I was
age,
going to say,
interesting
like,
choice.
I don't think if we're gonna XR or whatever it ends up being called, I don't think that's a big enough leap in technology to make FMV. I didn't get it. That was a mosquito for anyone listening to the podcast. I don't think they did quite enough to make FMV FMV shouldn't be around. Like, I'm sorry, it's good for a laugh, but not much more.
Unless they bring back Gabriel Knight.
Like,
Then-
sure, oh yeah, there are great characters like Razor Callahan, another one. Like, if you're going to bring back some of the classics, some of the legends, then go for it. But
Mad
this-
Dog McCree.
oh yes,
let's do it. But as when it comes to like sort of like TV, actually that's not fair to call them TV actors, but they are. I mean, they're TV actors. Like fucking having awkward scraps sort of in the pit lanes in between races in a probably quite awkwardly smudged together racing game. Like, especially considering that the team that did Dirt 5 and tried to implement story into that. I don't know.
Right, yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah. Interesting.
It's weird because rather than I like F1 and I think that's a cool game, but it's not something I normally pick up. I played it a bit, the last one a bit, because we played some with Steph and Techno guys. Jamie and I played a little bit of their tournament thing last year. Grid Legends does look quite cool in the sense of it's more of a what I don't even call it, like road cars that have been souped up to race around tracks, and with this story mode implemented, it does look cool. Like, it looks like something that would be fun to play, but it does still look weird with the whole FMV thing. It does seem like there's a cool story mode we've put in the game, and you're like, is it going to feel like a cheesy TV movie though when I'm not on the track? Is that how it's going to feel?
Yeah, it's almost like
Remains to be seen.
what was that fucking Remedy game? Quantum Break.
Yeah.
Right.
Where it's like, see what you're trying to go for. It's a really
Yeah.
cool kind of concept, but didn't really work.
They also had
Yeah.
the wisdom to hire 50% of the cast of The Wire and to go on, and everyone else they just pinched from Game of Thrones. So like that's the way you got to do it. Whereas this one was like, here's the name of one actor, and he was in Netflix's Sex Education. Like,
oh yeah, they even said that. Like, you probably recognize this guy. It's like, no, I
you
don't.
probably recognize this guy, and it's like, well, sorry, like.
Oh, man.
Can we? At this point, before we go any further, can we give a shout out to Austin Creed or Xavier Woods? Is it
Xavier Woods?
Is that his wrestling name? The guy who was presenting the EA Play, because he was a very, very good presenter, and I actually think he did a really good job of getting, of bringing the energy to it, which I suppose WWE superstars.
Yeah,
can do,
exactly.
They are pretty good actors, so they can bring it at the same time. But he did a cool job of like enthusing about all these games, which I thought was interesting. He definitely brought some like, hey guys, I'm so excited about Grid Legends.
That's the WWE training, baby.
Yeah. It was a forced enthusiasm. It was over the top enthusiasm, but clearly someone who
I think it worked.
He can sell it because he's good at what he does, like.
Yeah.
Also,
he's
why
a fun
would you call
time.
you? He's a fun time. He knew what he was doing. But also, if your name is Austin Creed, why would you bother to change it to Xavier Woods?
I think they're both fake names.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
I think
I was going to say,
yeah, because a lot of these guys like have things where like they'll have a name, then they'll have like a wrestling name, and they'll have variations on it, and then like they might go to the WWE and get like repurposed, and some people have ownership issues where like the WWE owns one of their names, so they might come out and start going by a different name.
Right.
When
here he goes.
leave.
He was born Austin Woods.
Austin Woods, there you go.
Sorry, not Woods.
Wait, actually, that's a mixture of the two names.
No, it was. Sorry, he was born Austin Watson.
Austin Watson.
So yeah, Watson. That's the surname you're going to change if you like.
Not good.
Vince McMahon is not letting any Watsons into that company,
especially like it's got like this kind of almost rhymey kind of thing. Austin Watson.
Yeah.
Anyway, but look, fellas, it doesn't matter because after Grid Legends, I don't know if it's chronological that I've got this, but we saw some Battlefield Portal. Well, Battlefield 2042, not 2042, 2052.
2042.
2042. It was 2042.
I think so. I think you got it right. Back yourself.
Fuck it. I'm tired. All right. Anyway, yes, some more Battlefield, and more intriguing is their new mode, Battlefield Portal, which is this really interesting kind of mode where you can define the battlefield through custom gameplay settings. And more than that, you can share and build your custom game modes, which kind of makes me think that it's almost like Battlefield's take on Super Mario Maker. What do you think of that, Jamie?
I think that's an interesting comparison. I think another one that I heard that I kind of thought was solid was Halo 3's Forge. Because I think the thing that that's interesting about this, and that makes a lot of sense for a console experience especially, and also just to make sure it's accessible, is this isn't a map creator. This isn't even a map editor. You're not you know, altering terrain or like putting a new skyscraper in the middle of a map. You're taking pre-existing maps, or as we'll get to, there are a good range of them for a certain reason. And you're saying like filling it with this many vehicles of this type and enemies or like factions of this era from these games with these weapons, and then you're using sort of like custom game mode style sort of like determining to create modes within that, which again was what Halo Forge was very good at, and that gave rise to like people who were very smart created like sports within that by you know creating walls and goals and using certain weapons to like the gravity hammer to create sports. Yeah, it was called like Griffball or something like that. And like Infection, and like lots of sort of fan favorite game modes can be created by changing the parameters. And I think what this does is it kind of gives a lot of the longevity that Battlefield multiplayer this year could have back over into the hands of the smarter, let's say, members of the community who wrap their heads around this kind of technology and make cool shit. And there's nothing not to be excited about that, right? Like as a bonus, like that's awesome.
Yeah, you both missed it though. It's totally accurate battle simulator.
It is also that, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, some of the examples they gave, like the one big tank, 100 little robots, or the Nazis with knives and the medics with what they called
Defibrillators.
Defibrillators.
Yeah.
That was, to me, it was just totally accurate barrel simulator.
Yeah,
It's very cool.
Looked
It's
fun
very
though. It looked cool.
Yeah.
yeah, and like bringing in all those elements again. I forget if we actually said this, but like from previous games, like straight up pulling maps and factions and weapons from previous games to bring that's so smart.
Yeah, it's very cool.
You're gonna do it just to try. Like you're gonna play that just to try loads of different combinations as well. So it's really smart because you're gonna have streamers as well going. Like there'll be whole channels where it is just starting battles with weird things, and they'll get loads of people online to jump in with them, and they'll play like the most bizarre mixes and matches.
Did you guys see the one where it was like 2042 like elite units against 100 Nazis?
No, I didn't see that, but that's great. Like that's such a good.
And like the idea being that like the if you spawned as a World War II. No, I don't know if they actually called them Nazis, but I'm going to call them fucking Nazis, all right? If you spawn as a Nazi, you might have, like, very basic sort of, like, you might have, like, a basic submachine gun and, like, one frag grenade and stuff like that, whereas the Battlefield 42 guys are kitted out in all their shit and have much more, like, health or armor or whatever it is, and all their gadgets. Like, that would be a lot of fun.
It's cool. There was one part in the trailer where the Nazis from, obviously, 1942, like, what did they do? They put a grenade on something and then it kind of like flipped into the air, and then it took out one of those like VTOL aircraft from like, what was it, Battlefield 4 or whatever.
Yeah,
like shit like that's fun. Like it's like your typical like crazy bombastic Battlefield mayhem that goes on, but now you're kind of authoring it in a very interesting kind of way. I'm excited for it. I think it's really cool.
I like the idea of doing something like, getting 50 guys all with submachine guns and then just get like 4 juggernauts or like the equivalent and just having everyone just go mental and see, who can take out more people and say, like, those are the weird kind of matchups. Like how many dudes with just submachine guns can take out just one guy who's tripped out with all his armor?
Even their example of one massive tank versus 100 duck-sized robots, that'll be so cool. Yeah, like, so cool, man.
Again, going back to Halo 3 custom games, like the community was so fucking genius with the shit they made with that it became the appeal. Is you just wanted to see what people were making next, and it always pushed the boundaries of the game and the tools they were given to such fantastic extremes that you really hope that again, like those whiz kids in the community pick up the stuff. And on the EA side, if they keep populating it with fan favorite maps, it's cool to see the Bad Company name is still being thrown around. For example, like. If they keep doing shit like that, then damn, that's awesome.
Yeah. Well,
what's your bet you're going to see people remaking Call of Duty maps in Battlefield? Oh no, you can't change the maps, can you? Oh, that sucks. That would be quite cool if you could remake Call of Duty shit inside of Battlefield. That'd be quite funny.
But I think it's more a case of like figuring out the new modes, like what's going to be the next new mode that's going to turn into the next genre.
Right,
and I think that's probably what they're hoping for. Like, is finding what the new genre is going to be through this mode.
Whether it's fucking battle royale games or even Chris, your own Dota.
Hell yeah.
Some of the best and most important revelations in games have come from developers giving players these tools, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting, and I can't fucking wait for Battlefield. It'll be cool. But then moving on. Apex Legends' new season has been teased in terms of emergence and a new legend called Sia, who Sia is in like someone who can see you, not Sia isn't the singer.
Oh, I was getting excited.
Because that would have been pretty cool. That would have been pretty cool, actually. I'd play it.
Rad.
I'd play as Sia. Seer.
Sia's ult is that she unleashes a pretend autistic child onto the battlefield, and everyone else remaining gets cancelled.
Wow. That's okay. Cool.
You're like, I'm taking the piss out of Sia, not autism.
No, I know. I just it's very late, and I'm just kind of like I'm a bit fragile.
All right. Death Stranding director's cut up in here.
Yeah, I'll kind of meet you with one of those takes.
Okay.
But did you watch the trailer? Did you watch the trailer for this thing?
Yes. That's the kind of cool cinematic-y kind of thing, right?
Yeah. Do you not feel that like Sia is kind of trying to be like inspired by Lil Nas X.
Huh.
Like this, like
The
skinny
Ride
gay,
My Pony
skinny,
dude.
yeah, skinny gay black dude.
Maybe.
Like-
I was getting more like Black Kung Lao kind of vibes.
Oh, definitely some Kung Lao going on there with that hat.
Maybe if you throw like Black Gay Kung Lao, like maybe.
Well, yeah, because like he jumped into that little battlefield and he just did this fucking sultry little dance thing before he like shot people in the face. It's like, what is that all about?
He did, what do you call it? It's like
and then
that
I could
Mexican
see-
dance.
yeah, and
He
then
did
I
a
could
bit
see
one of
his-
those, didn't he?
I could see his belly button, and that kind of made me feel. It awakened something within
Maybe.
me. I don't know.
Oh man, now I'm starting to think like one of his abilities should have been to like just spawn a stripper pole in the middle of the battlefield and he can slide around. Slide through the map.
His ultra's that.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. So the first time you pop it, you're like, this isn't doing much.
Yeah, it's almost like a stun, right? Like you do it, you pole dance, and then all of a sudden it turns into like Duke Nukem 3D where you press F and it goes, shake it, baby. And you got to throw money at. Yeah, hell yeah. I
don't know. He seemed a little bit OP as a character. Like when they were talking about what he can, his special shit he can do. I don't know. It seemed. I suppose if you want to play as like a hunter type character, because that's he can track people and he can hear heartbeats and things. I think, but he can also has it. His ultra was like where he throws out little drones and it sets up a dome that slows everybody down. And it's interesting. Like I do think he might get nerfed if he's
Maybe.
From what they've said already.
I'm not as
Maybe not
hot on Apex as like Chris has been like over the last couple of months, but from what I have played and watched, they've been pretty good about not straying into the territory where one legend has abilities that become fundamental to shootouts or to firefights. Right, everything still feels pretty much like weapon first, right? Isn't that fair to say, Chris?
Yeah, with some
like,
exceptions. When like I think when Valk launched, I think her ult was kind of abused. But what I've learned that devs tend to do when they introduce new things, and I've learned this from Dota, is they tend to make the characters OP when they release them, which would encourage people to play them more often, which means that it is easier for the devs to balance them because they've got a lot more data points. So it's just something to kind of keep in mind in terms of these
that
things.
makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah. But, Apex Legends, it's going from strength to strength. I'm really excited about the new season. I can understand how people just kind of are a bit apathetic about it as well. But something that we should not be apathetic about is the one more thing from EA Play, which up to this point has been fairly lackluster. Like, up to this point, Grid was the only game announcement, per se, that we hadn't seen before. But this was cool. This was expected. It was leaked, but it was good to see a confirmation on it, at least. It was the Dead Space remake, fellas, that we have ourselves reported on a handful of times or a couple of times on this podcast. So yes, a Dead Space remake is in the works. It is powered by the Frostbite engine. It looks very, from what little we did see, very cinematic, very atmospheric, and very fucking cack in your pants inducing. They've also said that it will include improved, quote unquote, improved gameplay. And what that effectively means is taking inspiration from all three of the Dead Space games. I guess kind of probably with quality of life stuff, I would imagine like the fucking stomp would be in there in this remake. Don't see why not. But yeah, it's interesting and it does seem kind of juicy.
It does seem juicy.
I think it's wicked.
Yeah, they didn't give a release date, did they?
No, but can I offer one tidbit? Courtesy of not quite friend of the podcast, but might as well be Jeff Grubb, who was the person who came out and said who got this right, basically. Let's say how it is. He responded to today's reveal by saying, "Short teaser, full stop. I've heard the game looks incredible. We will probably hear more about it soon. It's a reboot/remake. It'll have elements from multiple entries in the series." Things to pick apart there, but obviously my interpretation of the first half of that tweet is, there's more of this that they could have shown. And then someone asks him 2022 release window, ? And he says, I think maybe I haven't asked. But, I think, I like the idea that this is sort of like well is well on its way. I really like the idea, especially of seeing what that engine, for as much as it's got a lot of mixed reception over the years. I think it's super suitable for the sort of like the darkness and the sort of like the the glowy lights and the dim environments that
the atmosphere
exactly that Dead Space can provide. Even the sort of the audio benefits of the Frostbite engine. I think they could make something really cool here, and I'm very hopeful. Very hopeful.
Oh yeah.
I think the reboot / remake for me is an exciting prospect, because I don't want to see just a remake of Dead Space. I think, like, whilst that would be cool, that, I don't know, for me, I think there are definitely some things that would have, as a gamer, would have improved it for me, because I'm not looking to go and play an incredibly tense, horror genre game. But I've played enough of Dead Space 1. I really liked it. I didn't finish it. I would like to play more.
Early.
But if it feels slightly different, so this kind of feels like it's moving in the right direction.
Hey, as long as they get rid of that fucking asteroid level.
The moon boss.
No, the one where you go in the turret and you have to shoot down those fucking
thing.
asteroids.
I'm getting confused.
Shit.
Which one is it where it reveals that like the boss of the game is like an actual fucking planet and you're just like shooting a moon? I swear that's Dead.
No,
I swear that happens in Dead Space.
Is that Dead Space or Lost Planet? I don't know.
I don't know. I think it's Dead Space, but I might be fucking.
I'm gonna have to go down a rabbit hole after this one.
Smoking crack. I'll see if I can find it for you before we go to bed.
But yeah, just so that was EA Play. Like, I mean,
yeah,
some things to get excited about. But I think overall, like, at least
just for Jamie, I'll confirm the moon was the final boss in Dead Space 3.
Oh,
yeah, there you go. I apologise if I've just spoiled that trilogy for anyone. I didn't actually mean to do that. But yeah, there you go. So I just remember that being a weird reveal of like, turns out the bad guy was the moon.
The moon.
And then you just
That's
like,
so funny.
You're just shooting the moon. It's
Pretty bad.
and I think, does it have a face? Am I right in thinking it's got a face? Like they try and make the moon almost like this moon, not the moon.
It looks kind of squiddly diddly, like it's half moon and then half tentacles.
Okay,
Wow.
yeah, that makes
There you
sense. Yeah.
But yeah, the thing I was going to say, fellas, is like, for everything that EA Play was and wasn't, we had kind of like theorized, did they move it so far away from E3? And we thought like they must have something big, like that they want their own space to kind of talk about and have their own conversation. But this doesn't, I don't know.
I mean,
Am I wrong in saying that? Didn't we say either that or it's the fact that they don't want to be tied into like this it's a big reveal, big exciting thing. They just want it to be able to go. It's its own thing. It's
yeah,
not,
I guess
and then
so.
that gives them space to not have to be, they did shit at E3.
I mean, I don't know if that, because one thing you will say on that thought is like, how fucking long ago does E3 feel?
Yeah.
Like years. And so if people's overall perception of E3 was that it was kind of negative, and EA's play was like, hey, what if we're not a part of E3 so we don't get thrown under the bus with everyone else? Maybe it worked.
That probably seems to be the case more likely than anything else at this stage.
What's weird for me, I don't know if you guys would agree, but if they'd have put in some Dead Space gameplay, I think that would have turned it around for me.
Well, I think if Jeff Grubb is to be believed, this is like the start of the process, right? It was like, here's your teaser, then we're going to get a gameplay trailer.
Sure, I mean specifically for EA Play specifically, like if they'd have shown a couple of minutes of good gameplay, I think I think a lot of people would have come off the back of that going like, oh, what a great show.
And you know what? Like we always speculate about the EA's like capacity to do something really cool because of the IP they still own. But when you look at like what's actually in production, EA are gonna go into summer of next year where they'll have another EA Play at some point. Like Dead Space probably won't be out by then. That's a gameplay demo you've got basically guaranteed. From what we understand, Dragon Age will be I think Dragon Age is meant to be 2023 now. The last thing I read. Right. So like Dragon Age comes back next year, 100%. Mass Effect probably doesn't for that reason, but like maybe there's something like Star Warsy, like whatever like Respawn are working on, whether that's Jedi Fallen Order 2, other Star Warsy things, like EA could have some really cool stuff by next year.
Yeah, it's almost like the tagline for this year is like the transition year, like getting rid of known quantities, a few stuff like, hey, we are doing stuff, cool, like Dead Space.
Oh man,
It's
don't
like
but don't say that because
EA
2020 was such a bust, and now 2021 is going to be the same fucking thing.
Yeah, it's because like the world didn't go back to normal faster than anyone, as fast as people wanted it to. And like we're still talking about like if this showing had a full title, it would have been like EA Play : We're still working from home.
It would.
Totally.
Yeah. So yeah. Oh, can I give a shout out by the way to I think it was called Lost in Random, which was the other EA original that's kind of like floating
that
around.
looks pretty cool.
Yeah, when they showed the gameplay of that and the combat has like card mechanics with real-time combat, that could be interesting. So we'll see. I
wonder if that could be like a sleeper hit for them, to be honest.
Yeah. Also, FIFA 22. Hypermotion technology, lads. Are you in it or are you out?
I'm out.
Shit.
It's powered by, I don't know if you've heard, but it's powered by football. I don't know what it was powered by before, but this year, FIFA 22, is powered by football.
It was powered by Frostbite before.
Yeah, true.
I wonder if that's just their way of saying they're not using Frostbite engine anymore.
It's just a big middle finger. Powered by football.
Football, I guess.
Maybe Dragon Age 4 will be powered by, or 5 will be
football.
Powered by football. Hypermotion technology. For the first time ever in a Dragon Age game, we could get 22 players doing motion capture at once.
So funny.
Kylian Mbappe is an elf.
Okay, I'm gonna have to move on before you get me into a laughing fit. All right, rounding it all up, we've done a Ubisoft sandwich here, fellas.
My favorite.
We have.
Because we started with Ubisoft, we're ending with Ubisoft. How interesting! This is
With
Ubisoft
EA filling.
Part 2. All right, because now we're going to talk about something that I find absolutely mind-numbingly fascinating, but also at the same time, we don't have to spend a lot of time on it because I'd like to go to bed. There was a report, I think it was Kotaku reporting, kind of the ins and outs of what was happening with Skull and Bones, the pirate game. I guess the spin-off that was almost kind of promised with Assassin's Creed 3, right? Black Flag. No, 4, Black Flag.
Right.
4, yeah.
And it was almost like, hey, we did a pirate game, but maybe we should make a game that is actually a pirate game that's not an Assassin's Creed game. And that was meant to be Skull and Bones. But guess what, guys? It's just gone into alpha. Explain that one. It's been in development for 8 years. So far, the budget has been over $120 million.
Unbelievable.
With almost annual reboots, and it suffered from a lack of apparently vision in the past. And as we know from Ubisoft, pretty much as a whole, toxic work culture. I'm sure some mismanagement involved in there too.
Yeah.
But
I'll have to throw in a former developer said nobody knew what the fuck they were doing, which is a great quote.
right, I mean, seems to be par for the course with a lot of the big developers. Activision Blizzard. I'm dying. What I did find really interesting on this is that a deal with the Singapore government requires the game to actually be completed. I fucking love that.
That's one of those fascinating footnotes in any development where, like, how often do you get a game of this size and scope and a publisher this large that's basically trapped in its own never-ending cycle of development because, you know, it probably, whatever it was, tax breaks and all these kind of things they got by cutting all these deals with the government. They can't get out of it. It's fascinating.
Yeah, it's mental. But, like, I don't know, when they first announced it, it just kind of, it always felt, and the subsequent other announcements that they had on the game was like, oh, we're changing direction and now it's going to be this thing. It always kind of seemed like, even from the word go, just like an afterthought. Like, it's almost like a Rainbow Six Extraction kind of thing where it's like, oh yeah, it's just this like spin-off thing. We're not really paying much attention. We don't see it as like a forever IP. It's just a game that we want to put out and one and done, you know? It always had this kind of like weird air about it of saying, oh yeah, this thing that we really liked that we did in Assassin's Creed Black Flag, like, we just want to make it our own game and, you know, get it out there and then move on. And it's just like, oh, but now it's a multiplayer game and now it's a this game and now it's a that game. And it's just like...
Do you know what? To jump in here, I think it's, without going too deep in sort of like behind the scenes of the SuperShow, but for me, it is utterly fascinating that we're talking about this game at this time given some of the conversations us three have had over the past couple of days, maybe even weeks, depending on how far you want to go back. The idea that this was something that was extrapolated from a component of a previous game, which was seen as so strong and engaging and so big to fans, that it was almost like it was seen as a product that could stand on its own two legs, while there weren't that many people around who are willing to say, like, hang on a second, it's an idea, it's a concept, but it's not a game. Like, what do you actually do? But
that's
what's weird about that. Are you two picking up on what I'm putting down?
Yes, yeah, totally.
No, I'm talking about no murderers.
No murderer.
Like, is this thing like we all thought it was such a good idea for so long, but every time it was like, hang on, but what is it? What do you talk about for that period?
Yeah, right.
And like Skull and Bones is that exact thing. And someone's like, bro, everyone loves the sailing and Black Flag, and then there's just every meeting. It's like, yeah, but we don't know no one knows what the game is yet.
What is it?
You
know what the strange thing is? You know what the strange thing is since they kind of saw Black Flag and the like the sailing and the sea shanties and all that, and it's like, that's a really fucking good idea. Let's make a game out of that. And then they've taken 8 years to try and get this going to the point where they've just now gone into an alpha after numerous reboots. But in the meantime, what did we get? Another Assassin's Creed game in terms of Odyssey, where sailing and I guess you could say like almost like a pirate life with sea shanties and what have you, came out and it was fucking great. Like the mind boggles.
And also was massive. Like Odyssey was gigantic in terms of that map. So much of it was water. Like it's fast. I don't know.
But then one thing that I think is really interesting about this is the Assassin's Creed game with the sailing in it that span off to become a game that was like mainly about sailing. That is Assassin's Creed 4. Because the sailing in Assassin's Creed 3 was the element of that game that was kind of added in and was kind of a little bit more involved than I thought it was going to be when I played 3. And it felt like Black Flag was a spin-off, not a spin-off obviously, but was developed directly off the back of the sailing from Assassin's Creed 3. So it felt like they already did it. So then you kind of say to make Skull and Bones should have been even easier because like Black Flag had some criticism. It was still a good game, but it should have been even easier than just spinning it off a little mechanic.
Sorry, Chris.
Yeah, go. No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think that the sticking point for Sea of Thieves, though, is that, like, even though Black Flag could be seen as a spin-off from the main series of Assassin's Creed games at that point, and one thing that backs that up is the fact that, like, I think even Ubisoft themselves...
You just said Sea of Thieves, by
accident. Fucking hell. Fucking Skull and Bones.
No, but it works for both, probably.
Except one is a game that you can play and one isn't.
But what I was going to say was that Black Flag was always going to be an Assassin's Creed game, and that meant that it was at its core driven by a narrative, and you had to create, a protagonist of the story in a world and rules that world had to adhere to. You remember the first iteration of Skull and Bones, and it was kind of like this sort of weird multiplayer kind of thing where like it was about sort of like almost not quite repetitious gameplay, but about creating the loop of going out and having pirate battles and collecting treasure and then coming back and upgrading your ship and then doing it all again. And I wonder if like they just found that structure was too loose, whereas like Black Flag always had, hey, by the way, fundamentally this is an Assassin's Creed game, which is a huge backbone to have going in.
They may well have looked at games like Sea of Thieves as well and seen the problems that's had by basically saying, you just go out and create your own adventure and you're a pirate. And then it's like, okay, we can't do that because it's been done and it didn't do very well. Yeah. So we need to go out and actually make a game out of it.
I have cracked the code though, fellas.
Okay.
Go on.
I reckon this is Yves on the beach on the south coast of France. Is there a south coast? Yeah, whatever. And
is there?
I said that earlier, and I was like, I don't know if there is a beach there.
There is. There must be. Yeah, there must be. There must be.
I'm
trying to imagine it because Spain.
I'm gonna have to look at a fucking map.
Spain joins to it more to the left. I think there is a gap because that's why French is so common in North Africa, and so many North African people emigrate from to France because you can cross the water.
You're absolutely right. The Riviera, the French Riviera is down there. So that's where.
Shout out to Francis Ngannou.
There we go. So Yves is there, right, wiping away tears with his fat stacks of cash, saying, "Oh, Skull and Bones." But you know what it really is? It's just it's a game and a studio that's set up to fail, so it could be a tax write-off. I bet you. I bet you. It makes so much fucking sense now. It is like crystal clear.
He's actually laundered money through the Singapore government, and it's a tax write-off as well. So he's actually making bank, and he's well happy.
I love that idea. Either that or someone over in, where are they again? Singapore, has realized the way that you crack the Skull and Bones formula.
Because it was a Singapore studio, right?
Yeah, I think it is like Ubisoft Singapore. Yeah, they have their own studio out there, and that was part of the deal, I think, was that they made it. But apparently, the person that cracked the code on the whole Skull and Bones thing went into a meeting room and pitched the idea of, if you can imagine, like fast-paced boat fights meets punk rock mosh pit.
I love it.
Mate, I'd be so stoked to play
And
that game.
actually, so what Ubisoft Singapore are working on right now, we're proud to announce Tom Clancy's Skull and Bones, which is going to be pitting the cleaners from The Division with their flamethrowers. They're burning down other boats, and you have to stop them.
God.
And you will be playing as Sam Fisher's brother, who also uses all the same gear and gadgets and sound effects as Sam Fisher, but is not Sam Fisher. And the word Splinter Cell will not be mentioned, but you're playing as, like, he's got his own private boat. And
it's Stan Fisher.
Yeah, it's actually a really unique boat, unique construction, where it's got two masts right in the center, and Stan Fisher just does the splits between them the whole time for no reason.
I like it. Okay. Here's a very interesting thing. So I looked up Ubisoft Singapore. Okay.
Are they hiring?
Well, they are actually hiring, but
any video? No, I'm joking.
Well, hold on, because gamesindustry.biz 14 hours ago. Tell me if this is interchangeable with maybe another games company in the press lately.
Ooh.
So remember, gamesindustry.biz, a respected publication. Report details toxic culture, sexual harassment, and racial pay disparity at Ubisoft Singapore.
No,
Oh my God.
That's all they need. That's all they bloody need.
Oh my God.
I can't. You know what? There was a point where obviously, and I've said it on the podcast before, and Jamie, you said like, "Oh, don't worry, it's fucking millionaires, fucking squabbling with millionaires," right? But there was a point where I was very much rooting for Ubisoft because they did kind of seem like underdogs in a way, with kind of like their scrappiness and kind of like saying like, yeah. But in the end of the day, they were AAA studio. But it's almost like now it's just like I look at that whole company and I'm just like, what is going on there? You know,
What
much
is
like
going on?
Ubisoft, Activision Blizzard. It's like, what is going on there? It's just like mental stuff.
It is mental stuff.
Yeah. Do you know what's funny though? I'm not saying this is what's happening. That don't this to be like unfairly tar other games companies, but when you consider the reports come out that they're like, oh, these companies have got toxic environments and they're like frats to work in, and it's like a boys, and then you go, oh, that kind of makes sense with the fact that this game hasn't come out and it's been a complete fucking mess, and they've got, and it's back in alpha after 8 years. You'd be like, who's been making that? Oh, a bunch of frat boys who don't really do what they're supposed to do and have a pretty toxic working environment. Yeah, it kind of fits.
Yeah,
like that's, I'm not just saying. I'm just saying.
I guess the other thing is like the bigger they are, the harder they fall, right?
True.
So support indie devs, everybody. Supergiant Games.
Skull and Bones should not be that bloody hard to make either. Like, it should be relatively
what's your
straightforward.
pitch for a Skull and Bones game? Ubisoft come to you and say, Jonesy, we need help. We know it's pirates, we know it's boats, we get it. Big open world, just sailing around. But what the fuck is this game? Please help us.
It is 4-player co-op.
Okay.
Are you just going to talk about Sea of Thieves now?
No, but it is story-led. So it's like a proper story-led game where you're out doing missions together, and it's a loot game. So you got to get onto other ships, literally open their chests to loot them and get your stuff. And there's an overarching story which drives the whole thing. And you play it all together as a co-op game, and then there you go, Bob's your uncle. Easy.
Easy peasy lemon squeezy.
Easy peasy.
A 4-player
Wouldn't you think though, you've spent $120 million, you need to finish this game so the Singapore government can get off your back. Wouldn't you just kind of like phone it in and just say, I'm just going to make Sea of Thieves, but make it look like Skull and Bones?
Yeah.
Of course you would. That's exactly what you would do.
And why haven't they? Tax evasion Eve.
But now they will. Like, that's literally what they're doing now, right? It goes into alpha, and I think the thing is that they're now saying the game's actually not in a bad position now. It's in a pretty good place, and it's going to, the next year or so, blah, 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 blah. I think we'll see it by 2023 or the end of 2022, and it'll be phoned in exactly like you said, and it'll just be they just want to get rid of it, get it out of the press, stop people talking about it, and move on.
Well, anyway, there we go.
Man.
So that brings an end to the Ubisoft sandwich, fellas. Oh, you got a little garnish for the top, Jamie.
Yeah, it's actually a garnish, a good word for it. You know what was so difficult about that entire segment is, like people play those silly little games with each other where they say something like, "Hey Chris, you know D's."
Yeah.
D's nuts.
Yeah.
Turns out one of the games we've been saying a lot is one of those where people have been doing see if these nuts will fit in your mouth. And that was really
see if these nuts will fit in your mouth. Nice.
Which has been very hard to not try and sneak in this whole podcast, but I hope you respect the fact that I've been restraining myself.
I'm kind of sad you didn't.
Yeah. Let this be a lesson to you, Jamie. Like, you could have elevated this podcast and you didn't because you were a pussy.
You know what? I'm not as good at podcasting as Joe.
Who's Joe?
Joe Mama. That's Joe
Tomlinson.
That's the oldest one in the book. Well, he's probably okay at it as well. He gets paid the big bucks.
Anyway, fellas, we need a code word. And I was thinking, what was that documentary style thing you was talking about, Jamie? Was it Becoming Eve?
I can't even remember it now. Yeah. Oh, fuck.
And you could even put like the little money emoji there with the flying wings.
Yeah.
That could be quite fun.
Maybe if we'd just challenge people to come up with their own like Netflix style documentary, true crime documentary titles, based on.
Can they all be like da 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 whatever you want to say, Becoming Eve? So any funny little Eve tidbits.
Yeah. Or the Eve Gilmore story, or like
what did you guys say? Wiping the tears away with stacks of cash, Becoming Eve. Come up with your own title.
The Singapore Scandal.
Becoming Eve.
The unbelievable story of how Eve Guillemot robbed the world and got away with it too. A memoir.
By fuck it out, yeah. By Eve Guillemot and Miyamoto-san.
Skull bones and deceit. Skullduggery. Skullduggery in the East.
I think that's it.
East. What rhymes with East? The beast.
The beast from the East.
Eve Guillemot, the beast from the East.
This is every week how we come up with our titles for our podcast. Just Jamie going, what rhymes with East?
Singapore.
Singapore sling, fellas.
He's still going.
He's thinking on it. All right, well, I'll tell you what, Jamie, while you think on it, why don't you report back to us next week? But with that, thank you so much for watching, if you're watching on YouTube or listening on a podcasting platform of your choice. And we've been the Super Show. You've been mighty enjoyable, and we hope you have a great weekend. See ya!
The Neanderthal of Singapore. No, it doesn't rhyme.